I've been assessing accredited activity, academic, vocational, whatever, including cricket, for over 38 years. And for me, and from what I was helped to learn some time ago, there are four pillars of assessment. I'm going to go through these briefly. First, I'm going to list them, then I'm going to go through them individually. So the four pillars of assessment. What are they? Here they come. First, the authenticity. I'm only going to list them right now. There are only four, and they're very powerful. And I think anyone who's assessing others' work or is presenting work to be assessed can work to these in order to make what they are putting together more like what is expected. After authenticity, relevancy. So authenticity is about, is it your own work? Relevancy is about, is it relevant to the standards? Sufficiency is very often the most difficult, as I'll explain. And it's how much evidence do you need? And currency is not the nature of the bribe that's being given to the assessor, little joke there, but it's about how recent is this? Are you presenting evidence which is 60 years old, or is it 60 minutes old? So there you go. Now I'm going to go through them in order. Authenticity is all about all my own work. So authenticity is about convincing the assessor that the evidence that's placed before them is the work of no one other than yourself. How can you do that? Well, the assessor should know your context well enough to make a judgment, and you should all the time, as the candidate, because that's what people are called who present such work, the candidate has a responsibility for saying, how can I ensure that this causes my assessor no difficulties in terms of establishing it's from me? How do you do that? Well, one way is, it's not popular with everyone, handwritten stuff. I like handwritten evidence. I know for convenience and administrative sense, people like everything to be typed up. Who could have done the typing? Well, hey, there's a thought. So authenticity is helped by, in as many ways as possible, in the manner and format and the context and the content of what's presented, that there is no question that it's all the work of the candidate themselves. Ultimately, it's a judgment of the assessor. Secondly, is relevance. And relevance should be very straightforward. Here are the standards. You benchmark your evidence against those standards. And the judgment then is it relevant or not? But I think candidates could typically do more for themselves here. Sometimes there's a temptation to say, hey, this is vaguely on the topic. This is, excuse me, relevant to the overall purpose of this. If you're looking at leadership, if you're looking at team working, if you're looking at interpersonal skills, those tend to be my sort of areas. Then let's put this in. And then the assessor says, well, yeah, I can see it's headed right, but it's not at all relevant to the precise learning outcomes, elements, assessment criterion, knowledge, understanding that I'm looking for here. So I think the candidate's got to say, is this entirely relevant to precisely what it is that I'm presenting as evidence? And that would help everyone. So next one is sufficiency. How much is enough? Well, for anyone who's passed a driving test, how many three-point turns, how many turn in the road using forward and reverse gears, how many whatever, correctly, I did my driving test back in 1976. So it's all changed since then, I know. But the fact is, the assessor of a driving test typically gives people an observed one, no more, of whatever it is that they're making a judgment ultimately of, am I happy that they'll be on the road this afternoon? So sufficiency for a driving instructor might be just one of those key things. Park in the space just once, not 4 or 5 times. And the sufficiency is a tricky one because the assessor ultimately says, have I got enough? Have I got enough for my satisfaction and for my professional standards that satisfies me that this person is showing they can do this, that they know this stuff, that they can perform this role, whatever, that they're being benchmarked against? It's not easy. And I don't like the idea of saying, give me 3 bits of evidence for this, or give me 2 for this, or whatever it is. It's not a question of quantity, it's all about quality. It's all about, am I showing you the evidence that I can do this? And is 1 enough? It could very well be. Or does it take 6, or whatever it takes? And it should be a dialogue. It shouldn't be a judgment process purely from the assessor. It should be a partner's process, where if the assessor, for instance, is unclear about something, says, well, show me this is relevant, show me this is your work, show me this is, in this case, sufficient, because I don't see it. And maybe you can help me to see that. Because the person who knows the evidence best of what's being presented is the candidate themselves. So sufficiency is always tricky, and it's something which is helped again by the others. If it's relevant, if it's authentic, then that helps. Also, what helps is it current? Is the evidence that you're showing me current? So the more current the evidence that's being presented, then the assessor should be more comfortable with saying, yeah, I'm happy with this, because here's something you did this morning, or here's something I've seen you do live, if it's by observation by the assessor, which is a great form of evidence. That way you see with your own eyes what the candidate is able to do or not in your judgment. So the more current something is, the better. And these are conversations to have with candidates. These are conversations that all assessors should sit down and say, here's what I'm looking for. This isn't a question of, I'm only telling you half the picture and let's see if you can jump through the hurdles and get the other side. We should be helping people to come up with a quality of evidence which will help them. It ought not to be a try and trip you up process. On the contrary, it should be a helping process. So currency should be about, how far back am I prepared to accept evidence from you? Is it 18 months? Is it a year? Is it 6 months? Is it more or less than that? And does it vary? For this particular unit, are we looking for something which is absolutely current? I need to know you can do this right now, and I'll do that by the observation of you doing these things. So it can vary. It isn't a one size fits all, but currency is very important. And I think some candidates are somewhat taken aback when they say, well, look, this is good stuff, isn't it? It's relevant, it's sufficient, it's authentic, it's all mine. Yes, but it was what you were doing 8 years ago. Show me what you're doing now. That's what we're looking for, by witness testimony, by observation, by question and answer. The assessor has a responsible role to take, and currency is in that mix. So if I go all the way back, here they are. Authenticity, relevancy, sufficiency, currency. They all matter. Very often they intermingle. They overlap with each other. They're not always distinct and discrete from one another. And no one is more important than the other. And I think that if candidates present evidence which is in their mind throughout in relation to these four, that the candidate presents evidence that says, okay, I thought about authenticity, I proved it's me. Look, I've proved it's relevant. This does relate precisely to this, and I'm looking at the standards constantly to guide me in this. It's sufficient. I've thought about it. Is 1, 2 pieces of evidence enough? Does it take more? Or should I discuss with my assessor if you need more? So it should be a dialogue process. And currency, very important. How recent is this? And does currency vary across a whole assessment process? There you go. That's where to find me. I'm all over the place doing all sorts of things these days. I hope this helps. It's certainly helped me a lot of times when I've been working on various forms at various levels of assessment.